The galaxy had rules. Everyone knew them. Every species that crawled out of their home world and reached for the stars learned the same lessons. They learned about the Primordials. The ancient ones who existed before time had meaning. They learned about the forbidden zones, the dead worlds, and the places where even light feared to travel. But most importantly, they learned about the blue planet in the Orion Arm. They learned about Earth. The Primordials had carved warnings into the fabric of space itself. They had written them in languages that existed before language. They had screamed them into the void with such force that even newborn civilizations could feel the echo of their terror. The message was simple. Do not touch Earth. Do not approach Earth. Do not even look at Earth for too long. Leave the humans alone. For millions of years, the galaxy obeyed. Species rose and fell. Empires conquered and crumbled. Wars burned across star systems, and peace treaties were signed in the ashes. Through it all, Earth remained untouched. The humans lived in their small corner of space, unaware of the cosmic fear that surrounded them. They looked up at the stars and dreamed of exploration. They had no idea that the stars looked back at them with pure terror. The Velthrani were the first to question the old rules. They were a proud species, ancient by most standards but young compared to the Primordials. Their empire spanned 300 star systems. Their technology could crack planets and harvest the energy of dying suns. They had conquered 62 species and absorbed their knowledge into the collective. They feared nothing because nothing had ever given them reason to fear. High Commander Sethrix stood before the Council of Stars and spoke words that made the gathered leaders tremble. He called the primordial warnings nothing more than superstition. He called them the ramblings of extinct beings who had grown soft and cowardly. He pointed to Earth on the star map and declared that the humans were primitive creatures barely capable of leaving their own planet. He said their resources were ripe for harvest. Their world was perfect for colonization. Their species would make excellent workers in the mines of the outer colonies. The other species begged the Velthrani to reconsider. The Primordials had never been wrong. The Primordials had guided the galaxy through its darkest ages. The Primordials had sacrificed everything to protect existence itself. Surely their warning about Earth meant something. Sethrix laughed at their concerns. The Primordials were gone. They had vanished eons ago, leaving nothing behind but their pathetic warnings. Whatever threat they had seen in humanity was clearly imaginary. The humans were weak. They fought among themselves constantly. They poisoned their own air and water. They could not even agree on basic facts about their own reality. How could such creatures possibly pose a threat to the mighty Velthrani Empire? The invasion fleet departed 3 cycles later. 12,000 warships carrying 8 million soldiers crossed the boundary into human space. They expected no resistance. Their scanners showed human technology was centuries behind their own. Human weapons were laughable. Human ships were slow and fragile. The conquest would take days at most. The first sign that something was wrong came when the fleet entered the solar system. The humans detected them immediately. This should have been impossible. Velthrani's stealth technology could fool sensors 1,000 times more advanced than anything Earth possessed. Yet the humans saw them. Within hours, radio signals flooded every frequency. The humans were talking to each other. They were preparing. Sethrix dismissed these concerns. Let the primitives prepare. Let them gather their pathetic defenses. It would make no difference. The Velthrani had crushed civilizations that made humanity look like insects. This would be no different. The fleet approached Earth in standard attack formation. They broadcast the traditional surrender demand in every human language. They gave the usual terms: submit or die, become servants of the Empire, or face extinction. It was the same choice they had offered 62 species before. Most chose submission. Those who resisted were erased from history. The human response was not what anyone expected. There was no panic. There was no surrender. There was no desperate plea for mercy. Instead, every screen on every Velthrani ship flickered. A human face appeared. It was an old woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore the uniform of something called the United Earth Defense Council. She looked at the Velthrani fleet and smiled. She said only 12 words. "We have been waiting for you. We have been waiting so long." Then the screens went dark. The first wave of human ships emerged from behind the moon. They were small, fast, and numerous beyond counting. Velthrani sensors could not track them all. The ships moved in patterns that defied physics. They accelerated and turned in ways that should have killed any living pilot. But the pilots were not dying. They were hunting. Velthrani shields, the strongest in the known galaxy, failed within seconds. Human weapons cut through the armor like it was nothing. Ships that had survived collisions with asteroids were torn apart by missiles no larger than a human hand. The fleet's formation collapsed in minutes. 12,000 warships became 12,000 isolated targets. Sethrix screamed for retreat. His flagship's engines fired at maximum power. For a moment, it seemed like he might escape. Then something grabbed the ship. Not a tractor beam. Not a weapon. Something far older and far more terrible. The ship stopped moving. Every light died. Every screen went dark. In the silence, Sethrix heard something breathing. A human appeared on the bridge. Not through a door. Not through a transporter. One moment the space was empty, and the next moment she was there. She looked ordinary. Short brown hair. Average height. Unremarkable features. But her eyes were wrong. They were too deep, too ancient. They held memories of things that existed before the Velthrani species had evolved past single-celled organisms. She walked through the frozen Velthrani soldiers like they were statues. She stopped in front of Sethrix and tilted her head slightly. She studied him the way a scientist studies a particularly boring specimen. She told him that the Primordials had tried to warn them. She told him that the Primordials were not afraid of humans because humans were dangerous. The Primordials were afraid because they knew what humans truly were. They knew where humans came from. They knew what slept inside every human soul. Humanity was not a young species learning to walk among the stars. Humanity was something ancient wearing the mask of something young. Long ago, before the Primordials rose to power, there had been others. There had been beings of pure chaos and unlimited destruction. They had fought a war that nearly unraveled reality itself. When they lost, they did not die. They could not die. Instead, they chose to forget. They chose to become small. They chose to become human. Every human carried the echo of those ancient beings inside them. Most never awakened it. Most lived their entire lives as the simple creatures they appeared to be. But the memory was always there, buried deep, waiting for something to trigger it. Waiting for a threat that would force them to remember what they truly were. The Velthrani fleet had provided that trigger. 8 million soldiers and 12,000 warships had knocked on the door of sleeping gods and demanded they surrender. The woman smiled at Sethrix. She said the Primordials had sacrificed everything to put humanity to sleep. They had shaped the galaxy to keep threats away from Earth. They had screamed their warnings into the void for millions of years, hoping someone would listen. They had died protecting a universe that would never know what they had saved it from. And now the Velthrani had undone all of that work in a single moment of arrogance. The woman raised her hand. Reality bent around her fingers. The ship began to dissolve, not into pieces, but into nothing. Sethrix watched his soldiers disappear one by one. He watched the metal walls fade like morning mist. He tried to scream, but his voice was already gone. The last thing he heard was the woman's voice. She thanked him. She said the humans had been dreaming for so long. She said it felt good to finally wake up. The Velthrani Empire ceased to exist 3 days later. Not destroyed, not conquered, simply erased. 300 star systems vanished from every map. 62 enslaved species woke up to find their chains gone and no memory of who had bound them. The collective knowledge of the Velthrani, their history, their culture, their very existence, was removed from the universe like it had never been. The galaxy fell silent. Every species that had watched the invasion held their breath. They waited for humanity to turn their attention outward. They waited for the sleeping gods to finish waking up. They waited for the end of everything. But the end never came. Earth went quiet. The human ships returned to their hiding places. The strange woman and her ancient eyes disappeared. Within months, the humans were back to their old behavior, fighting among themselves, polluting their world, arguing about whether aliens even existed. They had gone back to sleep. The surviving species of the galaxy gathered in secret. They studied the humans from afar, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Some said the humans were merely puppets, vessels for something greater. Others said the humans themselves were the threat, their potential for destruction, encoded in their very DNA. A few suggested that what had attacked the Velthrani was not human at all, but something that had been waiting inside humanity for the right moment to emerge. None of them could agree on what the humans truly were, but they all agreed on one thing. The Primordials had been right. Earth was not to be touched. Humanity was not to be disturbed. Whatever slept in those small, fragile bodies was better left sleeping. New warnings were carved into the fabric of space. New messages were broadcast across every frequency. The old primordial words were repeated and amplified until every corner of the galaxy had heard them. Do not touch Earth. Do not approach Earth. Do not even look at Earth for too long. Leave the humans alone. And this time, everyone listened. On Earth, a young girl looked up at the night sky. She saw the stars twinkling in the darkness. She did not know that some of those stars had disappeared recently. She did not know that entire civilizations trembled at the thought of her species. She did not know that ancient powers slumbered in her blood, waiting for a reason to wake. She smiled at the stars and made a wish. She wished that one day humanity would meet friendly aliens. She wished that the universe was full of wonderful things waiting to be discovered. She wished that the future would be bright and peaceful and good. Somewhere in the void, the last echo of the Primordials heard her wish. They wept with something that might have been hope. Perhaps the humans would never need to wake up again. Perhaps the galaxy had finally learned its lesson. Perhaps existence would survive a little longer. But they also remembered what humanity was capable of. They remembered the wars that had broken reality. They remembered the chaos that had consumed entire dimensions. They remembered why they had sacrificed everything to make the humans forget. And they prayed, to whatever force might listen, that nobody would ever give humanity a reason to remember. The galaxy turned. The stars burned. And Earth continued spinning through space, a small blue marble hiding the greatest threat the universe had ever known. The humans dreamed on, unaware of the cosmic fear that surrounded them. For now, that was enough.